everyone. Welcome to our podcast. I hate this guy laughing at me. Okay, yes, I get nervous when I do the intros. I'm all like, right before, but welcome to our podcast, Vision to Success. We are so excited to have you here. Come and join with us with the conversation today.
We have I think this is the first time that we're doing a current event, what's happening in the world right now, kind of podcast.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we did do one about COVID and like vaccination back in the day.
Yeah.
But this would be one that definitely we're going to be talking about. Do you want to share what we're talking about today?
We are going to be sharing the slap heard around the world.
It has to be like what everybody's talking about right now.
It is. And I actually even heard somebody getting pretty upset that the fact that we're talking more about that than what's happening in Ukraine and inflation and all of that. And I can understand why they're upset, but I can also understand why the slap is the one thing that's being mostly talked about. So I don't know. That's just whatever.
Yeah.
So for those who are living under a rock,
just in case you didn't know.
Just in case. I don't know if you saw what happened at the Oscars. What happened? So, yeah, want to give the recap?
Oh, my gosh. So I actually didn't find out what happened until the following day when Miguel here showed me. He gave me the lowdown, and I saw Will Smith being upset, getting up, and giving a good slap to Chris Rock.
Yeah.
I was shocked. In all honesty, I follow Will Smith for such a long time.
Yeah.
But his anger and how upset he was and the change of Jada. But I'll have you know that I felt bad at first, and I was more on Will's side at first. But then after, I realized the impact of the slap. And that's what I kind of couldn't sit well with it.
So your initial reaction was to be on his side?
Yeah,
really,
100%. Because I like Will. How can you be not against, but how sometimes when we like someone and we follow them and we find them so inspirational, sometimes we want to be on their side, and sometimes we're willing to kind of look away when things that are not right happen. And I feel that was my initial reaction. Because even though you did show me the video when I was here, I actually saw a little bit of it on my feed on social media. And I was like, oh, dang, something big must have happened for him to snap like that. But I wonder what happened. But I was on his side.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, one of the most common thing was that because of his high profile and because this is his quote unquote first offense, people are willing to forgive him, are more likely to forgive him, and they're willing to turn the other cheek. No pun intended. But they're willing to forgive because of who he is, right? If it was a repeat offender, it's like, oh, there he goes again kind of thing. But because of who he is,
Well, check out the difference. I feel like, when Kanye went up and did that whole thing with Taylor Swift, everybody was on him. And I was on him too. And I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Kanye West to begin with.
Yeah.
But with Will Smith, it was different. And I have found it's different too because a lot more people are willing to have him have no consequences for the behavior that he displayed.
And that was in all honesty, that was my biggest thing. It was the fact that he did what he did, and then he sat back down. And obviously, mind you, I don't know what happened behind the scenes or when the cameras were off, but it was the fact that he did what he did. He sat back down, and 45 minutes later, he got an award, right?
And got a standing ovation.
And that's the thing that bothers me, right? And Jim Carrey said it perfectly, right? Like, Hollywood's spineless. So this happened, whatever. And then they're willing to turn the other cheek and just, still accept this guy. But I don't know,
he is dealing with the consequences of it. I think at this point, I'm kind of an in-between now. So I did go from being 100% on his side, feeling like, oh my gosh, he must have been provoked, right? There has to be a reason why this happened. Then to being on the side, he's high profile. He needs to know better because his actions have consequences. To now being like, you know what? People are people. But he is higher profile. So he technically is in a position where his consequences have more of an impact than if you went up and slapped somebody. I mean, you would get arrested, right?
Exactly. But that's the thing is, right? And this is why people hate rich people.
But it's Chris Rock. He's the one that didn't put any charges. Yeah. Had he put charges, he would have been arrested. Chris Rock, I feel like maybe Chris Rock worked it out. Him and Chris Rock, at least it seems that way.
They didn't work it out. No, they didn't work it out.
I don't know. Like,
No,
how do you
no,
know?
because Chris Rock never came to the front and talked to Will, and Will Smith never went to the back and talked to Chris Rock.
So am I wrong? Because I heard, and this is might be hearsay. I don't know how right it is. And if you know more about this, make sure you let us know. Hey, I'm Jade. Good morning. But from what I read, it said that I think it was like P. Diddy who put something out that said that both of them had spoken
No.
and that actually Chris Rock had gone and apologized. Oh no, it was Mike who told me that it was on the Ellen show. Somebody who was on there, I'm sure we can fact check it.
Yeah.
But they had said that they were upset because Chris Rock had actually been the one to go up and apologize to Will Smith.
That was no. So I've been spending way too much time on this.
You should be working, you know
I
that,
should.
right?
I know I should be working. I don't know where my business would be right now.
Income building things. Come on.
I know. Oh, trust me. I'm upset at myself because I've dedicated way too much time to this. But every day I've been on social media. Every day I've been watching talk shows and even whatever because I'm so. And I'm one of those people that I should be worried about what's happening in Ukraine, and I am. My heart goes out to those people and what's happening. But the reason why I've invested so much time to this because Will Smith has been my hero for like the longest time.
Yeah.
Right. I grew up watching this kid. Like we're talking about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Name any episode, and I will let you know literally word for word what the script was.
Oh my gosh.
I finished the sentences right when I'm watching reruns with my boys. I'm like, and watch this joke, and oh, look at this joke, and I'm like mouthing the jokes and whatever.
Season 2, episode 3. Tell me one thing.
He said, "What's up?"
Oh my gosh, he says that in everyone.
No, but I can't be that specific. I didn't know what's going on in the episode. I don't have the episode, anyways. And so,
a secret talent of yours, right?
but what was happening was, I grew up watching this guy, loved this guy, and one of the reasons why. When I started watching The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I was in grade 7 and 8, okay. Right? And I was going through some hard times, like identity-wise. My parents, we just moved from Toronto to Scarborough. I didn't have any friends, and I was like that. I was that loser kid. I was coming to school. I didn't have any friends. The only thing I had going for me was volleyball. And then once volleyball season was done, I was back to being that loser kid. And I was really good at volleyball. And then I remember watching my first episode, which was episode 2 or 3 of the Fresh Prince, when they were going to Carlton was driving a car to Palm Spring. Will Smith hit in the back. They both got thrown in jail. Anyways, I still remember that episode. I'm like, this is a pretty good show, and so I started dedicating more and more time. And I'm like, I want to be like Will. So I went from watching the episodes to studying the episodes, looking at Will Smith, how he acted and how he was and all these different things, how he spoke to girls, how he made friends with guys, and like, anyways, the cool kid. And so he helped me be almost what I wanted to be. So I did. I held him at such a high esteem. And then seeing not swearing in his rap music, right? And then all of a sudden he did what he did. And so for me, it was devastating. Right? It was almost like a personal attack on my own identity when I saw what he did.
Really?
Yeah. So I took it really hard. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why I've been dedicating so much time to this. But having said that, so this is what the reason why I'm telling you is this. What ended up happening is that the next day, Chris Rock put out an apology before Will.
Hold on. Chris Rock put up an apology? For what?
For being insensitive to the jokes that matter. Yeah. So Will got the award. 45 minutes later, he apologized to the Academy. He apologized to the fellow nominees and everyone except for Chris. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was pretty low. Yeah. Right. And then the next day, Monday, Chris, there was on the feed, Chris had put out an apology to Will and Jada and the Academy, saying, because that joke was ad-libbed. Right.
What does that mean?
Ad lib is like like
impromptu, like on the moment.
Yeah, in the moment, right?
Oh,
like,
okay.
So he was following a script, and
okay.
And then he looked over at Jada, right, and goes, Jada, can't wait for Jane too. That was not part of the script.
Oh,
but
everybody
knew that because Chris does that every year. He has his set jokes, whatever. But then if he sees somebody, and he's a comedic genius. Yeah. So if he sees somebody, whatever, he'll throw, so they'll give him free range. Okay. That was a pretty mild joke.
I think so.
Right? that was a pretty mild joke, like, right? And I don't think, and Chris has come
Has
out.
she not been in G.I. Jane?
She wasn't in G.I. Jane, actually. So I found out and she wasn't in G.I.
Okay.
Jane. Yeah, Demi Moore was in G.I. Jane, and then again it was
Okay.
But the movie G.I. Jane is actually, it's about a woman fighting back against masculinity in the army and then pushing forward and all that stuff. So some saying it should have been a compliment, but it wasn't a compliment. It was a joke, right?
Yeah.
Take it for what it is. It was a joke. But Chris didn't know about the alopecia thing.
Yeah.
And so Chris just said it. Now, would he have said the joke knowing Chris and knowing how edgy he is? I think he still would have said it, right? But anyway, so at the next day, Monday, he apologized to the Academy. He apologized to Will.
What, on his feeds, on his social media?
Yeah,
shoot, I totally missed that.
Yeah, he did. And then it wasn't until the next day, like Tuesday, that Will Smith came out and apologized to Chris. So yeah, there was no honor in Will for like the timeline of events.
But I mean, he still apologized, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like and he is paying the consequence for what it is. You know, it's like making a mistake, but being it happen in public stage, because that's what he did, right? He assaulted somebody in a public stage. But at the same time, it's playing out in a way that, what if that happened between two friends? Right?
It was two friends. Like, no. they hung out and there's pictures of them.
But exactly, right? If it happens behind the privacy of closed doors, perhaps it would have stayed there. But because it was so public, now we have the public opinion of what should be happening, right?
Yeah. 100%.
And I do think that things are going to be he's going to be expected to do a lot more, Will Smith, because it's so public, right? Well, he's going to be made an example out of this.
Well, so yeah, like the actions were public. So I think the consequences should be public, right? It's not like, oh, we'll take this behind closed doors and we'll discipline behind closed doors. No, like, I mean,
people want to know. I want to know what's happening.
Well, he needs to fix, right? Because let me give you an example. About 3 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I got called into a school, and so obviously 3 weeks before the Oscars, so almost 4 weeks ago, I got called into a school where there was a massive fight. But it was pretty much it had become the culture, right? So there was I'm not going to tell you the age, but there was a fight between two kids. Mm-hmm. One kid said something bad to the other kid's girlfriend, right? So this one kid, the boyfriend, during recess grabbed a branch and smacked it over the guy's back, like broke it over the guy's back. And the big quarrel, just like a big fight, started happening, right? And like, don't talk about my girl like that. Grade 6. How old's your oldest? What grade is she?
She's in grade 5. That's like a lot. She's turning 11, so that's 12 years old.
So the next age. So she's in grade 5. So next year, right? Two kids fighting, and first of all, boyfriend girlfriend. They don't understand what that means. But this whole sense of like, I don't like what you said. So then, therefore, it gives me permission to smack the living daylights out of you, right? Or to break a branch over your back. So I got called into the school to try and fix the culture because that's been happening. I don't like what you're saying. I'm just going to smack you. I'm going to fight you, right? So I came in. I did a whole bunch of other things, telling these kids that's not right. You should not do that. There will be consequences for your actions. 3 weeks later, this happens.
Yeah.
And thus far, there were no immediate consequences. He still won his award. He received a standing ovation.
Yeah.
And not only that, literally, I just had a conversation the other day with an adult older than us, right? So we're talking about like in their 50s, 60s. And they're saying that he had every right to because he was defending his wife.
It's funny because I've seen some of my friends posting, I'll get some of the feeds that say, do you think that what he did was right? And I see some of my friends posting and answering questions like, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm like, you know what, though? Hitting is never the answer, right? Exactly. You never do something aggressive. Like if somebody's aggressive towards you, granted, self-defense, absolutely, right? But if it doesn't call for you hitting that person, then it shouldn't be done regardless.
Yeah.
But I've been surprised, too, because it has been people older than me. It has been people that I look up to that I'm like, dang, like,
and
it's the culture, I guess, right, that we're in right now.
And it's such a two-way streak because there's whole thing about, so here's another side, okay? So
tell me. I like that. It's like I'm getting the lowdown. Tell me.
Girlfriend, let me tell you what's happening here. So there's this whole thing about feminism,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So whether you agree or not, that's besides the point here, right? So there's this whole thing about feminism, and feminism is not about breaking down men. It's about women empowerment,
Yeah.
right? So last week I was at a school, again, another school, and I was talking to a principal. She is just absolutely amazing, right? Married, bunch of kids. And she's all about women empowerment, giving power back to the women. And I totally 100% agree with her mentality and her thing. And her thing was, so her brother was like, yeah, well, I'm just defending, he's just defending his girl, right? And then she said, what makes you think I need defending?
Yeah.
That's what she said, the principal, right?
Yeah.
She goes, I'm a big girl. I can take care of my own. If I'm offended, I will do something about it. I don't need a man to go and fight my battles, verbal battles, right?
Yeah.
Now, if a girl's being attacked, right, and she's being overpowered or whatever the case is, then I can see the whole chivalry and all that other stuff, defending whatever. Whether or not you agree with it, that's besides the point. But if something is said about you, do you want the man to stand between you and the offender and protect? Some say yes, I want my man to defend me. And others are like, I can fight my own battles. If I'm offended, I will say something.
I think it's just depending on the person, because I think if I was in that situation and I was with Mike and somebody was being uber disrespectful towards me, yes, absolutely, I can fight my own battles. But he better be behind me, like backing me up.
Yeah,
he better be like, yeah, Maria, go. Like, that's what I want, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? I would have that expectation that Mike would be there defending. Now, I would not want him hitting anyone.
Right.
That's different. Right? But if he stepped up and be like, hey, who do you think you are talking to her that way? Then that is definitely accepted.
And I think people are confusing the two. I think if Will Smith would have done that, even if you just would have even Jim Carrey said, even if Will Smith would have just screamed something out, hey, get my wife's name out of your mouth, right? Or just something like that, that would have been more socially acceptable, because the offense was words and the defense should have been words. But
they didn't match, right?
They didn't match, right?
Yeah.
The offense was words and the defense was physical.
Yeah.
And that's where, and people are not understanding that, like, that's where the actual offense is. They're saying, well, he was defending his woman, right? The principle is correct. Whether you're a feminist or not, whether you want the man, standing and fighting your battle, that's besides the point, right? Like, that's besides the point. I think in a woman, like you said, they want to have someone
to back you up,
right?
Yeah,
Whatever you decide to do, right? Whatever. But the biggest problem was that the offense, quote unquote, it was just a joke, but the offense was verbal. So the defense should have been verbal.
You know what? I do have to say I'm a little disappointed with Jada as well, because now correct me if I'm wrong, but to my understanding, the only thing that she has put out is that it's a post that is said, it's now time to heal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
It's like, address it. Maybe talk about how you felt. Maybe talk about, like, this really hit me, and I shared it with Will, and I wasn't expecting him to do this, but it was out of pain. Like, give us some backstory so at least we understand, because at the end of the day, saying, okay, it's time to heal, to me, at least this is just to me, it's like it's swept under the rug. Let's not talk about it anymore, because it already happened. There's nothing we can do, and now it's time to move on.
Yeah, there's no I was confused about that post as well. Like, heal what? Heal what you've done to Chris? Heal that? Let's focus this year on forgetting. Like, it was very...
Yeah, I was disappointed. I was like...
Yeah.
But I don't know if I've been watching some of this stuff on Goldcast, and they had this whole big story about, hey, are you paying attention? I'm just kidding. Hey, just kidding. Share it. Okay, there's a comment. Do tell me, what do they say?
No, this is actually very interesting. So Pam Blenhart, did I ever...
Yes, I know Pam. We've met.
Did I ever tell you about what happened when, like, we were at church? I think we did. I think the last time we all went out, there was a guy that stood by that sat.
Okay, was it I think I know what you're talking about, but was it the guy that was a little bit on the edge?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you remember that?
I remember the story, but you should probably share it since you're bringing it up.
No, Pam brought it up here. She goes, tell us about when the time that Cliff thought that your wife was his middle in the church. So this was...
Hold on. He thought Tegan was...
So what ended up happening was...
So this is at church.
Yeah, so this is a church. This is a church. We were... Man, I remember... This is crazy. So this was years ago. We're talking about plus 10 years ago.
No, I don't think it's been that long.
Yeah, because it was... I'm thinking bishoprics that we've had.
Oh, okay.
And it was during... it
was before COVID for sure.
100%. So it was about 10 plus years ago.
There's no way. It's not 10 years.
Yeah, I'm being 100%. Yeah, because I'm telling you right now... Yeah, because she had...
She had the twins. She didn't have the two youngest, but she had the twins.
I'm just thinking about bishoprics, right? So Scott Sherman would have been 5 years, and then Bishop Hardman would have been like a year and a half or so, and then it was Beamer, so it would have been 5 to 7 years.
That seems more right.
Maybe 7 to 10, but anyways,
maybe 15. I don't know.
It wasn't that long. But I get to church, and there was a guy, and he used to take medication. He was schizophrenic, right? And so, or bipolar. I don't know what he had, but he had medical condition, and he started cussing me out, right? Saying that I violated Tegan, right? And just being very... This
was out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
Even before you knew that he had mental health conditions.
Well, I did know he had mental health, and we, as a ward, we helped him out, right?
Okay.
Like we would help him out and stuff like that. And so, anyway, so he knew him. Cliff and I were... He knew who he was. He knew who I was, and I knew who he was. We've sat down together. I helped him out on other occasions or whatever. So, but apparently this time he didn't take his medications because he didn't like the way that it felt.
Yeah.
And so then he went into an episode. So I get to church. Immediately he starts reaming me out, saying how I violated Tegan and that she was his wife. So I'm like, okay. So I kind of like analyzed the situation. He wasn't aggressive. He was just cussing, like he was just whatever. And so what ended up happening? Hey, shout out to Wendy. Oh yes, we'll talk about that thing today. Remind me again about that, Wendy. And so what ended up happening was I went to the front to go and do sacrament and all this, and then I saw him sitting beside Tegan.
Oh my gosh, how was Tegan feeling?
Tegan was a little bit scared, like which she didn't know what was going on. So she just has this guy, schizophrenic, sits beside him, sits beside her,
and she's with the kids as well, right?
And she's with the kids, right?
Okay.
So I saw this, and immediately I saw this. I went up to the bishop, the leader of our church, and it was Beamer at that time, and I'm like, listen, when we came into the chapel, this is what Cliff said.
While church is going on, while sacrament is happening.
So sacrament's done.
Okay, but this is like still people are getting up to do their stuff, like the talks, or is this after church?
So this is right after sacrament.
Okay.
So so sacrament just finished.
Okay.
So now everybody that blessed and distribute the sacrament, they all went and went to go sit back down with their families.
Yeah.
I was blessing the sacrament.
Okay.
So before I went to go sit with Tegan, I went over to the bishop and I said, hey, this is what happened before when we came into church. Cliff was saying all these different things.
Was Tegan there when he was like yelling at you, or she didn't see that happen?
I don't remember.
Okay.
And so I go, and so this is what Cliff did. What I want, I'm gonna go and sit down and just be. Something might happen, so I just want you to be prepared. And then Bishop Beamer was like, okay, I'll keep an eye on that. So I'm walking down and I'm like, hey Cliff, can I sit beside my wife? And he stood up and he's like, come on, man. And so he wanted to fight me, right?
Oh my gosh, this is like legit when sacrament, like.
Oh yeah. So
I can imagine the whole congregation is like looking.
So the first speaker has it because now the bishop's up there saying, okay, everybody, thank you so much. The blessers and pastors going back and sit down with his family. So the bishop is still out there, or the counselor was still up there conducting, right? So the first speaker hasn't even spoken yet.
Oh my gosh.
So all of a sudden there's this massive fight that's about to take place. And he's like, come on, man. I know this is what you did to her. And she came to me and she was crying like, let's go, right?
Oh my gosh.
And so I looked over and Tegan was freaking out. She had the girls, she had the kids. And so I had to make a really quick decision. What do I do? Do I engage in defending her, or do I go sit down? Because the aggression wasn't with her, the aggression was with me.
Yeah. So
I'm putting her in danger if I continue this engagement. So what I did was I sat 4 rows behind, just enough time that if he did try anything, I can go over and take him down.
That must have been the most stressful
I felt like
church day you've ever had.
Yeah. I was ready to leap, right? So because I needed to keep my distance away, but also be ready to go and take him out, right? And so as I sat down, the bishop came and hey Cliff, I need something. I need your help. Can we go and talk? And goes, oh yeah. And so he went and sat up and he followed the bishop outside of the building, outside of the sacrament. And then they talked, they spoke and everything. When I sat back down with Tegan, I'm like, are you okay? And everything, right?
Oh my gosh, talk about stress.
But can you imagine, like, if I would have reacted with physical violence at that point, if I hadn't kept calm, cool, and collective, right? Who would have been hurt in front, behind, and my kids, what traumatized, how would they have been?
It totally would have impacted their church experience, right? And like 100%. Their feelings, and everybody around you would have been watching you.
Yeah, 100%, right? Yeah. Shout out to my sister. Wants me to give her a shout out. So like, this is so sad. Yes, Dinora, I love you. Frick, right? Like, this is one of those people that just needs attention all the time.
Listen, don't listen to Miguel, Dinora. I'm sure you're amazing.
No. She is. Like, I mean, she is. But yesterday we celebrated my mom's birthday. And she made it all about her. Like, we're here to celebrate my mom, right? Like, it's her 81th birthday. Let's, whatever. And she's like, but do I look good? And do you like my food? And then all of this. So,
I'm just going to take what you say as a grain of salt. So because I know you. So I'll take what you say as a grain of salt.
Yeah, she's awesome. She goes, what is it? Still got your... But, I mean, so... Yeah. It could have been worse.
Had you just like reacted and slapped him and been like, I gotta take him out because I'm taking care of Tegan and making sure my kids are safe.
Exactly.
Which, you know what? At that point, I would be tempted to say like, you acted in the right way because the guy was in your face. Mm-hmm. But I guess at the end of the day, you have to assess the situation. It would have created more damage than good. And he'd never launched at you.
Right. He never launched at me. So there was no. And so I think that's what happened with Will at the Oscars. Yeah. Is that he looked at his wife because he laughed at the joke.
I saw, yeah. I saw her getting upset. You can visibly see her getting upset, but he was laughing.
He was, and he's good at doing that, right? Like, even if the joke is not funny, he'll do that, right? So he was laughing, but then I must have looked over at Jada, and then she was visibly not cool, and then that's when he reacted. He didn't just stop and assess and be like, this is being televised to millions and internationally. I'm just going to stand up and I'm going to go smack him to defend my wife's honor, right?
Well, that's the thing is when you react out of emotion, you forget everything, right? Like, you don't act rationally. And I think him looking back at it, he probably knows that. He attracted attention that wasn't positive attention.
Yeah. And that's... Yeah. And that's the thing. So that's the biggest thing right now. That on his apology, was pretty much the main thing is I reacted without thinking. I know that my actions were poor and all these different things. And so,
you know what I didn't like about the apology? I'm like, yeah, it's great that he apologized. And we
know
at the
Oscars or the letter?
The letter.
Okay.
I still had a bit of a problem in the letter because he did apologize, but at the end, he just said, I am a work in progress, which is true. We already know all of us are work in progress. But I do feel like that took away from the apology. Mm. That's what I felt when I read it. I was like, just take accountability. Say my actions were wrong. This happened. Don't excuse your behavior because of saying I am a work in progress. It is true. All of us are. But that's not the right place to put that sentence in. Those were my thoughts. That's why I was kind of like, eh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so... The question now is, how long does he have to live this with, right? Are we able to forgive and forget? Or is this like...
We should forgive and forget.
But is it going to happen?
We should attempt to, because I'm like, now on the other token of me being like, meh, about his apology, at the end of the day, he is a human being, right? So if we're holding him up to these high standards, which... He does need high standards. He's a public figure. But just remember that those same standards should be applicable to you. And if you have difficulty living up to those standards, so maybe it's a good time to give other people, not just him, but other people some grace.
Interesting. Yeah.
What do you think?
Me?
You're like, I'm never forgetting this.
No, but and that's the thing. It's I'm having a hard time because like I want to forgive and want to forget. but there needs to be a little bit of what's it called when you
Retribution?
not retribution. Yeah, Chris Rock smacking Will Smith.
Is that I don't even know what the word retribution means.
Are you?
Big words.
We have one rule in this podcast. One rule. This is like the golden rule, right? We're both Latin descent. English is not very good looking sometimes because we no speak it.
It's just these big words that we're like, wait, what
So
do
don't
they
use
mean?
it.
Where's Google? I gotta ask it. What is retribution?
If you don't know the meaning of the word going into the sentence, don't use it.
It sounded good.
No, so the philanthropist of the retribution and
Just throw big words.
No.
The metaphor.
Oh,
That's a big one.
So no, retribution is like the payback.
Oh yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
that does okay. Scratch that
Yeah.
big word.
Yeah,
But
don't-
now I can use it because now I know what it means.
Yeah, now you know what it means, but don't if you don't know the word going into the sentence, I highly recommend. Because all you just told everybody that it's okay for him to go. Chris Rock.
Chris Rock should go. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Don't. If anything, Chris Rock has handled this like a gentleman.
Yeah.
Like-
100%. So I think what's happening here is I'm willing to forgive. Like Will Smith hasn't done anything to me, right? So who's he to forgive me? But I'm willing to.
Or you to forgive him, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What did I say?
No, you said him to forgive me. Anyway.
No, me forgive him, right? I'm willing to forget and just be like, okay, let's move on or move past this, even though he has no he hasn't done anything